Now we are talking about engineering works. Let's talk about engineering as a profession. In many times here we've talked about engineering is a discipline of solutions, looking at a problem and designing a solution and making sure that that solution then works. And we ask ourselves, Sasa Koni Kenya, all these problems.
Should our president
Hakuna engineer?
Hakuna engineer.
There's a whole faculty.
Surely.
At the University of Nairobi, you know, those of us who went to college when there was only one university, we have to stop and say, oh, sorry, the other university.
The other university.
But there was this one university.
Many. There's one person who knows about the engineers in the country because she is the registrar for all of them. The registrar and CEO of the Engineers Board of Kenya is Engineer Margaret Ogai. She's our guest for the next hour. Good morning, Engineer.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you so much.
It's engineered to make you comfortable.
It is really comfortable.
Right, very good,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Yeah.
City has the day's proverb.
Yes.
I
This
do.
week the proverbs are from Eritrea.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
You know, they even have an anthem.
like a national anthem, or like just an anthem like the people sing in the street? Sorry.
They have a national chant.
We're going to town. Let's sing the country
By
songs.
the way, you two clever people actually spot on. Okay? Yes. It's like a chant, but you know how it is. Remember I was telling you about the country we were talking about the other day? And I told you theirs ends with oye. Okay? Eritrea, the chant, which is called the anthem, is Eritrea, Eritrea, Eritrea.
How unique.
Yes. That is,
What's that?
see that thing which
They
you
announce
mentioned?
themselves.
City. So that's the national anthem of Eritrea.
No, it's the chant. It's the
The
days
chant.
like
It's the chant.
Yes.
It's our Harambe.
Yes. Harambe.
Glory, glory, Man United.
Okay.
That one.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's this Eritrea, Eritrea, Eritrea.
It's like Chairman Mao in Beijing, China. Chairman Mao said,
Okay.
sorry.
Next.
The proverb.
Okay.
Okay. If an enemy learns your dance, he or she dances it in the crooked way. If they learn your dance.
If an enemy learns your dance,
Yes.
they dance in a crooked way.
Yes.
Okay. So we are looking at interpreting that.
Yes.
It sounds very straightforward.
See?
And I would say this, that obviously, I'm actually just going to speak, I don't know about interpreting. Let's just look at things, and we are going to say that there are always people watching you. And those who are, I think there's only one genuine and one original. Anybody else who does something is pretending to follow that. To
imitate you.
to
copy.
imitate you. And I think when we look at, I look at the space I work in. I think for in engineering and in anything, I think any professional, if you're not a professional, and you do that work, you're really not going to deliver what is expected of you. So professional work should be left to professionals to do. If you're, yes, I think that's what I'd like to leave it at. I'm not so sure if that is the right interpretation.
Okay.
Okay. So
Professionals should do their work professionally.
So if you're selling smokies,
The non-professionals will never do the work of professionals. If you're selling smokies,
and you have a lab coat, stick to selling smokies,
And
even if you're selling smokies outside the hospital,
Do not enter the lab.
Don't
enter
see
the lab.
you see, it's even the work you're doing now. I think if I tried to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah, it's a profession. It's
No, this
something you have, a
No,
specialization.
this one is easy. This one you can do.
Engineer Margaret Ogai,
Yes, please.
as Registrar and CEO of the Engineers Board of Kenya, what is the board and what is Registrar?
Oh, thank you. So the Engineers Board of Kenya is a parastatal established by an Act of Parliament, the Engineers Act of 2011, and we have 4 mandates, and they're all geared towards public safety and welfare in the built environment. So we do registration of engineers and consulting engineering firms. The second thing that we do regulation of the practice. which means we can go into site and check on how the work is being done. And if there's something that is not being done properly, we can also institute disciplinary cases on our members. And for non-members, we would then take them to other enforcement arms. The third thing we do is the setting of standards. And the recent one that we've done is this engineers' scale of fees. This was enacted by Parliament, and therefore any engineer who is offering services should charge not less than a certain amount. And because we tie that to a standard of the service that you're going to offer. Then fourthly, we also do capacity development. One, for the professionals themselves, and two, development of the industry as a whole. So in this, we do CPD programs for our engineers. They're supposed to attain at least 50 each year to get their license. And this is just to keep updated with the technologies that is going on. But we also look at general development. So there are things like this right now, the liberalization of engineering services. There are talks, and we are the ones leading in the engineering space. How are we going to open up the trade to trading these services? Currently, I think our system is a little bit, we have been trying to build a local practice. So you'll find that we are now having to look at it again and say, if we want to participate within East Africa and Africa, basically what do we need to amend in our laws, and how do we also bring our standards up so that our engineers are internationally recognized. Okay. So I think those are the four things that we do. What was the second question?
What does the registrar do?
Oh, registrar registers and holds the usemakweli that this is the register of engineers that we have in our. So you're the one who does that first mandate, as well as now being CEO, you run the other three mandates. Yes. Then CEO is just generally, of course, you have an organization that is supporting the board or the secretariat. So just the general day-to-day management of that is now the CEO part.
Okay.
But the register is everything to do with how do you have the examinations for the engineers, setting the standards on registration, having the register. We publish it once a year. In March, we publish the register of all engineers. So that the public is aware who they could get services on engineering from. Yes.
So who does this guide, right?
Yes.
Because the engineering sphere, you have quite a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
Civil, electrical, electronic. I mean, it goes across board.
True.
So who does this provide guidance for, and at what level? Graduates? Those who are in practice, those who have their private practice, those who work for organizations, who?
Just everybody, as you said. And I think I'm so happy you seem to know. But once you graduate from the university, we register you as a graduate engineer. And for you to get employed in public spaces, and in many actually employers, they require a registration by the board as an engineer, so that they can give you engineering work. Now that, then we also have the professional engineers, like you said. A graduate engineer is meant to then practice for 3 years in the practice now to get the professional experience and independent practice. So for 3 years, then they'll come for an examination, become professional engineers. Minimum is 3 years. The professional engineer now can carry out independent design, drawings, submit them to the county governments and all that. Yeah. So again, at the county governments now, they have the guidance. These are the people who can submit drawings and calculations for if it's structural engineering work, building services, mechanical, electrical work. And then so they also should rely on that list, and they do indeed. And then we have of course, consulting engineers. For you to run your own consulting firm, you have to be registered as a consulting engineer. So those firms, again, are the ones who are supposed to do engineering work. And this is client work, like, for instance, design of a highway, design of power systems, and all of that. So again, we expect that our ministries, departments, agencies use this list to when they do the tenders. This is a list that they should be using. We have issued circulars through the PS. Our PS issued circulars to all our ministries. We call them MCDAs, ministries, departments, agencies, that this is a list that you should be using of people who are registered. Maybe to say this, of course, unfortunately, there's the rules. Rules are always there. And then there's a referee, which is us. And then there's always people who want to cross that red line. So unfortunately, we still have those who are engaging non-engineers to do engineering work. But we are trying to move into that space.
Okay. So I'm just looking at the year, because we spoke about this here, and it could then give rise to the next question. In 2021, there was a news article that came out, and I'm not sure if it was this board or another body who made a specific complaint about a level of certification that the graduate engineers had not reached. So the question then became, are we going to send them back to school, because they do it's a 5-year course at university, right?
True.
Are we going to send them back to do the last year, because that is when you're looking at some kind of specialization? Or are we going to say that you must then come out of, after having graduated, do we need you to do a special course, so that we can say what you're saying now, that we are sure that anybody who is entering into the job market, anybody who gets in as a consultant, then has met the mark? Because there was some complaining that at the university level, there's something here that these folks have not quite mastered, and we are not happy with that, to send folks out into the market. So, do you influence then what is taught at the university level to say, let's make sure that as we churn these people out, there should be no question about their certification when they finish?
Okay, thank you. Actually, we regulate right from the full engineering value chain, from the education to the training, as I said, the 3-year training, and to the practice. And so what we have laws in this country. We have laws in our Engineers Act. We have a responsibility on recognition of engineering programs taught at the university.
Only at the university?
Yes, we don't deal with we don't deal with TVETs.
Okay.
We deal with the university level programs, because our value chain is to become a professional engineer. And so we apply that, and we have currently on our website 60 programs taught at our universities in about, I think, almost all the universities, 15 of the universities training these programs. They're recognized. I think what has happened in the last, then we have another law that is also very important, which is the Universities Act. And we have a Commission of University Education. And they also do accreditation. Let's call this accreditation of programs. And they have accredited so far. We just did an inventory the other day, around 100 programs. Yes. And so these programs, I think there was at one point there was an impasse that you need to have double registration. And so these other 40 programs have not yet been submitted to the board for recognition. But I would like to say that this is something that is behind us. We have had a meeting with the head of public service, and it has been agreed that we're going to work, we're going to be consulted, and we're going to resolve these programs which have not yet been recognized. So like now the second part of your question is then what do we do? Because we do have those who have graduated. We have also looked at it as a board, and what we've agreed is we are going to evaluate the content of these programs. And depending on the gap there is, we are working now with the Council of Engineering Deans and Principals, who is more or less a forum that also saw this crisis starting to come up, and we've been working very closely with them, and they are going to help us design some programs to bridge these gaps. And a number of the students actually out there, all the graduates and students who are there, are very willing to go for that extra markup. And so I think it's an issue that we are resolving. I'm very happy because we've already done, in the last 1 year, we've done 32 programs. We accredited or recognized 32 programs.
32 of the 40 extra.
Out of the 60 that are fully on our list, 32 have just been recently they did a revision of their curriculum, or they applied to us in the last 1.5 years. And we've managed to go to the universities, we've managed to accredit those programs, so we don't see a crisis going forward. And I think what also came out from that meeting is that we will need to be involved right from the curriculum development all the way to accreditation audit, because so I think I think it's now very clear. I think what we've been having as a country is laws that are really not coherent,
fit for purpose.
Yes, they really, yes. You would have now education, I think to some point it would come up, and they have valid reasons, because they said they would, getting all these other bodies also coming and telling us, I'm a nursing, I'm from the medical, I'm a lawyer, and I want to go look at your programs. We've been told there has to be a coordination, and that is what the QUE will be doing for us. But we are going to be involved in the full process. And the reason is we really can't afford to have, as you say, a 5-year program. A very brilliant student, got his A's, is aspiring to be an engineer, gets into a program which then leaves out some fundamental issues. And you can't then send that person to the market, and they'll not be able to have the competency standards to design for you, for instance, a 60-story building. Yes.
Can I ask this question?
Yes, please.
Madam CEO, the certification and everything that happens after, well, it's a two-pronged question, after the engineer has graduated, is it possible for the certification to be part of their course, so that by the time they actually leave, they have sat for those exams even as they are studying, so that you get a full package? When someone leaves the institution of learning, they already have the basics. Now you can graduate as you see fit. That's question number one. Question number two, who is the engineer? Who is the technician?
Good.
And which institution do you oversee, or do you oversee all institutions up to the village polytechnic?
Okay, thank you. I think in what we have, engineering, I think, is not done by just engineers. We have engineers, engineering technologists, and engineering technicians. And the engineering technicians are graduates or from the polytechnics, yes, and they get a diploma. So they support the engineers, because an engineer, even if you've designed and you're going to supervise a certain project, when it comes to the drawings, the actual drawings, that you can delegate to the technician to prepare what your design is, isn't it? Also, when you go to site, if it is lab tests, they will pick the samples, take them to the lab. Again, we have now laboratories that are testing the materials. We have technologists at that level, and technologists is wide. You could have also physicists support engineers in the materials testing and design and all that. Then we also have engineering technologists. These are people who've done higher national diploma. And there's also a new program that was introduced, which is a Bachelor of Technology in Engineering. And so they also support the engineers through that. You see, there's at least higher level responsibility, but not quite the full design, and not the oversight over the engineering design that you've done. And they have a regulatory body, which is the Kenya Engineering Technologists Board. Yes, and is also domiciled at the Ministry of Roads. So I think this is a recent development, and we are supporting and collaborating each other, because we know that an engineer is not going to work in isolation of having the technologists and technicians. And part of the gap that we're having as well is that if you're delegating even any part of your functions to be done by, you really need that person to also be recognized, or to have some licensure of some kind, so that we can hold responsibilities, everybody to responsibility, and also that they don't overstep their boundaries, because I think that has also been the case. And I think I think everybody, the village, as long as you sit near a building, hata fundi ni engineer.
Definitely.
It's a street language. You understand? But it's okay but you can't have that person then coming up and telling you, toa hiyo chuma, tulikuwa tumeangalia, you ameweka ni too much. We really can't have those decisions made by anybody else but that who is made for that, who has the full understanding of that practice. So we have these two bodies. In other countries, they are merged. In fact, that is the standard across Africa.
To have one body.
And let me say this. I think we started with the practice of regulating the engineers. And across all of Africa, we do have similar bodies. But with time, many have realized the gap, and they have now brought in the technologists and technicians within one body. For us, they're separate, but I think we're able to complement and collaborate even with our current structure. I don't think that in itself is a problem. We have recently, at least, also agreed on the roles and responsibilities of all the 3 cadres. This is now, I think this is then brings a lot of clarity. So we have no issues. We're working, I think, fairly well. For the moment, the engineering practice itself, the regulatory side of it, Engineers Board has been there since independence, whereas this is the Technologists Board is just from 2016. So they're still growing their numbers. They're pretty low, but we're there to support them, because what is happening is that in the absence of that, engineers are working with people who are not registered by anybody, and you can't also tell the competency standards.
When it comes to licensure, and you have technologists, you have technicians, and then you have engineers, and they're all working in the same industry, okay? They're working together. How streamlined is it? I was looking for the word to ask the question. How?
Yes. Does
it work with fits and starts, or is it something that has long been established?
It's smooth and clear that, exactly. My role begins here and ends here, and then you take it up from here.
Thank you. That question is very, very, very good. And I think I was going to say historically, I think there's been a lot of focus on regulating engineers, the overall. But we now realize that you have to work in partnership and in collaboration, very close collaboration with all the other paraprofessionals and support staff. And so in Kenya, historically, we were registering and regulating engineers and technicians up to 2011. Then the new act specifically was for the engineers. That created a gap. This was then addressed by forming the Engineering Technologies Board from 2016. And today we have 2 bodies regulating different parts of engineering, but I think we have clarity about the rules of each. In fact, this comes from the international level. We have the International Engineering Alliance, which has standards for engineer, standards for an engineering technologist, and for a technician, and different accords for that. Yeah, we have what we call the Washington Accord, Dublin Accord, and the Sydney Accord, all looking and setting standards about, 1, the education, 2, what is the practice, and what is the extent to which you practice. So I think we're just domesticating that in Kenya, and we are starting to have very serious look at what is the practice, and I think there's now much better clarity. For one, we have now come up with schemes of service. We found, even across the ministries, across public sector, there's a lot of differences. You'll even find sometimes an engineer placed and working as a technician. Sometimes somebody who has no engineering background is placed as head of the engineering function. And I think these are things we are now streamlining. So it's not very well streamlined, in short. But it is work in progress. And I think very good work in progress.
And so all these different categories of engineers, their licensure is separate and distinct.
Yes.
Which means that what their licensure allows them to do is also differentiated.
Completely. Both by the Act. If you read the Engineers Act, actually, let me give it. We make it very, very simply. Designing of any facility, any infrastructure, whatever it is, even electricals, building services in a house, has got to be done by an engineer. Yes?
The design
of it. These drawings can only be submitted to the authorities by an engineer.
That's why I smile, because I'm thinking of you put up a house and somebody purported to be an engineer, electrical engineer, and every time you switch on the light,
something goes off somewhere else.
Yeah, something not only goes off, it goes off with a bang.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what exactly has gone wrong.
Yes. I was going to get to that.
Okay, please go on.
Yes. So designing and the drawings, the calculations, like how much, what you need to have for this house, how will you connect it with the mains, all that has got to be done, is regulated because of the safety aspect of it. And so that is done by an engineer. And those drawings are submitted to the authorities that need to be submitted to. Mainly it is county governments or the authorities that we have. If it's a roads job, has to be done with the roads agencies. Then we come now to the implementation side. The engineer will be the overall supervisor of this work because he's trying to implement this idea that he had and to ensure the quality standards are met. But he can't do it alone. Yeah? And there is where we start bringing in plumbers, electrical wiring technicians, and all of that. The challenge we have had, I think, is that at one point in our country we shifted, and I think we stopped really training on the TVETs. There was a real focus where we moved a lot of very, very good TVETs out to become universities, technical universities. And we started losing a lot of these very well-trained technicians. And again, Kenyans, we became also very paper-rich.
Yep.
You go for interviews, you're being asked for papers. You see, nowadays, many of us have at least masters ni minimum, easy. Yeah?
So we
now,
say.
oh, isn't it? We don't even know the quality of that. So unfortunately, we had then technicians who are not very placed within their profession, within the whole practice very well. They had no recognition. And so anybody wakes up and says, sinikuwaya. I wire for you, tinker here and there.
Yep.
And we have now, I think we have a body, IPRA, registers at least the electrical technicians. We have different bodies, but I think it's not been very clear that one body that is at least proving your training. Where did you get your training from? So I think that gap is now being closed by KETRIP, working together with EBK. And we are hoping that we will be able then to give guidance to our communities and societies. I think these gaps have been there, but like anything else, we have realized them and they're going to be closed in. You're only requesting, please look for licensed people.
Okay. No, I have a problem with too many of these bodies.
I know, eh?
Yeah.
It introduces yet another gap.
Because there's the engineers board, there's what are you calling the other one, the technologies one?
Board, yeah.
Then when you come to the education side, there's a commission for university education. Then after qualification, there's a qualifications authority that will recognize it. Too many things.
I know.
That is what is leading. For example, just the example you've given us.
Yes.
The Commission for University Education has a mandate to regulate universities.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And to issue charters to universities.
Correct.
And to accredit programs in universities.
Yes.
And they'll check all those things. So you want to offer a degree in this and the other. These are the minimums that it's expected that the Commission for University Education would understand what is required of a university to offer a certain program.
Okay.
Let's say a BSc electrical engineering.
Yes.
That they would know you need at least a basic minimum of this number of lecturers, this is the curriculum for it, and all those things. Why do we need the engineers board to also come and interfere with that if a Commission for University Education has that mandate?
Okay.
It's the same question that we have with the Commission for Legal Education.
Yes.
And the
dentist
board. And the laws.
Okay.
The Kenya School of Law, the CLE, and who's offering this. Then they go into the university. Okay. You create so much confusion.
No, I think we don't create confusion.
What do you do?
I think, first of all, it shows you the level of development you are in a country. Two, let me look at it. We know this professional practice. And this person is going to come later to get a certain practice and a certain competence level and fit into an industry to offer that service.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll be very reluctant to go to a doctor to get some treatment, and yes, you said you studied medicine. It's okay. That's a theory.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it should be. I think if it's done in a very collaborative way, obviously the QE would have found out what is the practice requirements. However, we have programmatic approach, which is taken by QE, which is good. At the institutional level, they know what is required to run a university. Senate, all these quality requirements and all that. But professionals, remember, are also rapidly changing. The practice as is being offered today is very different when it was offered 20, 30 years ago. So it is very good to now collaborate with the person who is going to come out and fit into an industry needs to work with a professional for that industry fit.
Okay.
And the truth of the matter is, depending on the universities, this is a matter that has been also going on for a long time, and we found that in some universities, some very fundamental programs were not being trained. They were not being trained. And therefore, that person is not going to be able to then deliver on full engineering practice. And I've said how we're going to solve it.
I see the gap
So
here
what
being-
I would want to say is just that I think as government, we are now having a lot of one government approach, whole of government approach. And to me, having these different aspects is like the departments within one big organization.
But they're not departments.
The issue is we are now starting to work together.
They
I
are
can
not
tell you.
departments.
They are autonomous bodies.
Yes, they are not departments.
You know
Because
this.
when you went to university,
Yes.
Faculty of Engineering was Faculty of Engineering.
That was
Yes.
a department.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Now imagine if you had Faculty of Electrical Engineering, Faculty of Electronic Engineering,
Aeronautical.
Faculty of...
Mechatronics.
You can say it is good, yes. But if all of them are semi-autonomous within that huge faculty,
That's what I'm saying.
yes, then you work under one umbrella. Then everything's... But this is not what we have here.
No, there's a practice which is regulated
Yeah.
separately. And I think it is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it is actually the standard. Even when you
Agreed.
go out of this country, even a pharmacist was telling me, you cannot even go to study a master's degree in pharmacy because they will ask you, go back to your regulator and show us the degree that you attained. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is we do have commercialization even of university education. That is
Yes,
also
we
a
do.
fact. So the regulator is there, but you need the practice to also bring in the perspective of and I think in the spirit of our constitution, which is participatory, consultative. What is it that you would be finding so difficult as a standard for all of us to set, but allow me to bring in my voice?
Yeah.
I think that's what we all need.
I think
So then
the
when we-
problem,
Bring
engineer,
out- yes.
is at the point of recognition that everybody wants to be the final say at a point. If, for example, the practice was contributing towards curriculum development
Yes,
and quality control,
yes,
then you leave it at that.
correct.
You're contributing there.
Correct.
And then this other body that is in charge of managing the
oversighting.
oversighting of
Yes.
of all universities and everything that's in there,
Yes.
they're getting in
And indeed, yes.
all this from that. But when it comes to the very end,
Let me say
I'm
this.
coming to register as a graduate engineer, and then you tell me, ati umetoka wapi?
Ulifanya
Sorry.
hii na hii.
Na tiko wapi kwa hii university gani hii?
Ni gani?
And you're forgetting another thing, that now you also have people who have trained abroad and come to us. And that's why we did these international accords.
Yes.
So that your degree, if it is in Malaysia, if it is in UK or wherever, we have a standard to which we can look and say this is a full engineering program and it can be accredited. For me, these things we are talking about are things in the past. I've told you we are now coming up with a collaborative framework between professional bodies and the Commission of University Education. And we are, and I'm sure this is not, as I said, this reaches a point where there was a split. There was basically, I think we went very rights-based as a country. So everybody would sue the other person. And then I come in, I bring another law to override what you said, and you know how it was. I think we are now starting to see more coherence and more implementing of the spirit of the law. And so even this issue of getting somebody go for 5 years only to tell him his university program is not accredited, we've been given 3 months by the head of public service to resolve this matter, and we are doing it.
So
and we will.
Okay, so with all of these bodies that then still come together, as
Yes.
you've said, in the instance where something does go wrong, and culpability then lies at the foot of an engineer,
Yes.
who then does the common person go to for recourse? There's a building, something's gone wrong,
Yes.
and it comes to the responsibilities with the engineer. Who am I going to?
Yes, you should. I think that is what we are there to regulate that space, and you should come and you should send us that information. So I'd like to encourage the members of public. I know quite often, I think there's a lot of confusion, and I think that's what you're saying. There's so many
'cause we don't
bodies,
know
nobody
now
quite
where-
knows
yeah.
where this responsibility lies. But if it is an engineer and you're convinced this engineer is the one who either under-designed this thing, or even stole, you
Ate
got
the money for the road.
Yes, ate the money for the road. That should come to the engineers board, and we are doing disciplinary case hearings for areas where we found indeed, we are referred to by the National Construction Authority. We work in partnership with them. They regulate and register contractors.
Right.
And so they also refer to us when a building collapses. They will refer to us that information, and we've set up disciplinary hearings. So far, I think we've done about 20. We've cleared about 15 of them, and we have found we've just concluded another 6 this week, and so we're trying to also resolve these matters. And I think engineers who they are, it was also turning out to be a wild country out there. And we are finding I think it's improving. I know it's changing very slowly.
So let's paint a picture, okay? And a picture based on some reality.
Yes, please.
So then you can explain what would happen, right? With a lot of the projects that happen in the country today, the aspect of public participation comes into play. So if you are constructing a road, for example, in a community, the members of the community then are called for public participation to say that government vested is going to do this road, vested in Kera, whichever one. In this case, let's pick Kura. All right? The engineer and all the other individuals are then listed, and they tell you we are going to build 2.1 kilometers of road. We are going to do it from point A to point B. We are going to include this other road. And at the end of the day, the point is to have tarmac from point A to point B. We have told you, we've given you the measurements, we've given you the specifications. The site engineer is this. The adjunct engineer is this person. The engineer is the person who essentially is the man or woman on the ground for the duration of the project. Halfway through the project, Gafla bin Vu, we decide that 2.1 kilometers becomes 1.2 kilometers.
1.2 estimated still.
Because the sun shone on the west today instead of the east. All right? And we say that is how we are going to do it, and we finish and we go. Where we will find you, we do not know. So
contractor is out of sight.
Finished.
After doing 1.2 kilometers instead of 2.1.
Yes. Meanwhile, there was public participation. Everybody signed. Agents.
There was even a contract that was for 2.1 kilometers.
Contract has come from the Ministry of Roads. Everything done. Assigned.
And not only 2.1, with the details of what you're talking about.
How it will be done, covered, we will beautify, we will put that barbed wire that does things. We'll do all of those things. We'll even plant flowers, short of putting garden gnomes there to be smiling at you. Now, what happens? Because engineer is the one who's talking to everybody. People drive by, our road is being done. Engineers and say, yes, good morning, madam, yes. But then now, 2.1 has become 1.2.
So
who are we supposed to talk to? Because engineer has been talking to you all this time when the road has been being constructed. But now we've left it halfway, and we've told you we'll come back in September, we'll finish. Who are you having a conversation with at that point? Because like we said, it's not just in the structure, in the knowledge, expertise of this thing, it's also in the behavior.
Definitely.
How does that happen?
There's a lot of ethics, and that's why I said we do take our engineers to task when we receive a complaint that meets a certain threshold. We'll definitely open an inquiry. Independent committee will look and discuss this. We are also now looking at being more proactive, because I think what you're also talking about is a full accountability for this engineering work. And we want to have standing committees in the county governments, which we establish experts. We have accredited checkers who can do an independent review of what went on. And to me, and this particular case you're bringing out, I'm sorry to say that it also involves a little bit more. It's more of a governance issue and accountability. So there are many other bodies that will come into play, because it could have been that there was a financial propriety, isn't it? It could be something to do with that. And so I think this particular one, I would rather that we deal with, like, if we get a complaint, we'll definitely look at the threshold. What happened? Why did it happen wrong? Because sometimes it also means that there's no fund. These are public bodies and they're funded publicly. Maybe the budgets that were given, the budgets that were allocated were never quite. They were revised halfway through. So the engineer is also left in a difficult position. He's told, now instead of the 800 billion, you've got to work within 300 million. It happens.
So it can only be then.
So what do? You start redesigning or saying, let's break it up to here and do it as stage construction. We'll do the next bit. So I think what we do is we look at this case and we'll appropriate.
Madam CEO, let me just ask.
Yes.
What you've just said, if, say, for instance, a road was being built or someone was trying to construct whatever it is, like they're trying to construct in front of our gate here, I'm not quite certain what it is. Do our laws permit the body that is in charge of it, like, is this Kenha, Kura, or Kenha?
Kenha,
This is
this one.
Kenha.
Kenha, okay. To sort of put up billboards that say, if in case you have a complaint or you're inconvenience, call this number, blah, blah, blah. Why I asked the question is because the explanation you've just given makes a lot of sense. But
on the ground.
Yes, but are you allowed to tell people, this budget isn't quite working?
Things have changed.
Things have changed. People are allowed. I'm saying this.
I think so. I think what we also have is, I think we've been over years, we've been disempowered, in my view.
Yes.
And many times, many of us don't even know that we have recourse. And we sort of grumble. I have seen of late a little bit more bravery. Somebody has written to the board and telling us that the person they recently employed in a certain county, and we've checked the qualifications, and these people are not even engineers, and we went to check on such things. So I'm starting to find a lot of us, we really do have a lot more access to information and to solutions than we are really seeking.
Out of curiosity, were they actually not engineers?
Out of curiosity on that case, no, I think we found that it was an engineer. There was an engineer, but it was a graduate engineer who is ready to become professional engineer. So we found the best solution is let us get this person trained to become a professional engineer. It wasn't a crisis as we thought. I think when we've written back.
But do you know what brings this about?
Yes.
Do you have many cases where people write to you to tell you of the wonderful work you're doing?
Engineers are. I must tell you, our engineers are seeing and a lot of improvement, including and the universities. I must tell
does the public?
But the public,
I didn't ask my question correctly.
Yes,
does the public?
Overall public.
Yes,
and I think
we complain nicely. That one we do quite well, and we're improving it. But I'm saying,
do they ever commend us?
Yes, do they also say that you guys have done this is very good stuff. We've seen this person you brought here really knows his stuff. In fact, look at the changes they brought about.
Yes, I think we do get quite a number of compliments. I was actually expecting the question of the buildings which have collapsed to come in here. That's usually what comes in.
The reason why we haven't asked you is because there are very many buildings that have been put up across the country.
Yes.
We don't expect even one to collapse, but those who collapse, which collapse rather, are few.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
And it's a question that we have asked over and over. And some of it are outside the purview of what you people do.
You're correct.
Some of them are.
In fact,
like you say, when you investigate in some of these cases, have you found yourself in a situation where you've deregistered an engineer?
We have currently suspended one engineer, and what we found the practice this particular engineer unfortunately had got himself into was stamping drawings for purposes of registration at the NCA. It's actually a gap we have seen, and then not being there to do the job. So that is actually one of the biggest gaps that we are finding. But as you're saying, we should not have buildings collapse.
No, we shouldn't.
And it's a reputation as a country that we developed, and we are looking at. I'm sure we're really trying to bring this to control this issue, because we found it is a very complex. It's a governance issue. Underlying all of this is a governance issue, because it should be having an engineer at the county government who's going to oversight the whole building controls aspect.
Often we actually have those people. That's why when you say governance,
they don't have engineers.
I'm telling you the truth of the matter. I think that we really, there's a space we didn't quite get as we devolved, and we know counties are going to be the centers of development for this country. We need to build the technical capability we have at the national level. It's not been built at the county level. And professionals are just had been very worried. I think we are now into the third cycle, and I see a lot of improvement. A lot of professionalism is starting to come in. So I'm saying we start from there. If you look at the full value chain, you look at the developer himself. Some, I think, have been so intimidated by the same somebody within the counties that you have to give it to this person, even if that person is not qualified.
Yes.
And so you find that they are not also, approvals are not coming through unless it is taken through some other shortcut routes, some routes that you can't tell. So developers have that issue. We are trying to sort with them. We have no capacity at the county government level. Then we have had, I think just blatant, we are not following rules. We have rules that have laid out. I want to say our laws in Kenya are pretty strong, but the implementation
Total different story.
is a bit different.
You're an enforcer of some of those laws.
Yes, we
so
are.
Please,
We are doing something.
deregister engineers and tell us, is one out? This
Not only
one
that.
suspended.
I think what you want is buildings, safety in buildings.
Yeah,
No, madam. We want
I
all
want
those
blood
things.
on the streets.
We also want to see a list of the people who've been deregistered.
We have it on our website.
Sawa.
The ones that are,
Yes.
have been deregistered.
Suspended and
we have.
deregistered.
Yeah, thank you so
Engineer,
much.
we
Yes.
thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you too.
Come again soon. This conversation has just begun. We've
Okay.
introduced you to our public. So the next one, they'll
Tumeshukuru.
have very many questions.
Okay, thank you.
Engineer Margaret Ogai is the Registrar and the CEO of the Engineers Board of Kenya. She's been our guest.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.